If you wandered along the coastal regions of England during World War One or Two, you may have noticed great big, slightly curved walls about 200 feet long, or large concrete parabolic dishes. You may have even noticed men hooked up to what looked like large megaphones. What were they doing? Welcome to Series 1, Episode 10 of the Better Humans podcast. These podcasts are based around the theme of making a self-development journey or personal transformation to become a better human, discussing what makes a better human. My name is Greg Pfeiffer, and I'm your host for this series. This episode is titled, Weren't You Listening? And I'll be talking about the value of listening. The various devices I spoke about were known as acoustic locators. They were used to locate enemy aircraft in the days before radar was invented. Now, aircraft tended to have large, loud engines, and using acoustic reflectors and acoustic locators, it was possible to hear the aircraft before they could be seen. So at that time, great importance was put onto listening. It is listening valued now. We are bombarded with messages about having to make a statement and tell our story. But if we are all doing that, who is left to listen to the messages? And are people listening to our messages or simply hearing them? Hearing and listening are not the same thing. And while we're out there making our statements and telling our stories, are we stopping to listen to what is happening around us and to the people around us? So why do we listen? Usually it's for one or four reasons: to obtain information, to understand, for enjoyment, or to learn. But as per the story above, we can also listen for signs of danger. Now, did you know that we tend to have default listening styles? Meinhardt et al. Have identified four distinct listening styles. The first is the task-oriented listener, who is focused on efficiency and shapes a conversation around the transfer of important information. Type 2 is the analytical listener, who aims to analyze a problem from a neutral starting point. Type 3 is the relational listener, who seeks to build a connection and understand and respond to the emotions underlying the message. And type 4 is the critical listener, who typically judges both the content of the conversation and the speaker themselves. Now, do you identify as having one of these listening styles? Maybe does it change on the situation? So what is the difference between hearing and listening? And have you thought about the differences? Hearing is a natural thing and a passive activity. Listening, by contrast, is a learned skill and is an active activity. Hearing can happen without any thought input. Listening, however, requires skill and attention. So this is a skill known as active listening, and it helps the listener stay present and engage with what is being said. This allows for the development of a relationship and helps to create empathy. One of the pitfalls of listening is to be thinking about our response rather than focusing on what is being said. This can lead us to being distracted and maybe missing some of what is being said. And we may miss some of the non-verbal communication cues of the speaker. So active listening requires us to pay close attention to what is being communicated, both verbally and non-verbally. We need to interpret the content of what is being said, the emotions present, and the body language of the speaker. To do this, we must be willing and able to devote energy to the task. So what are the elements of the skill of active listening? Psychologists Carl Rogers and Richard Farson are responsible for defining the concept of active listening and describe the skill as being vitally important for effective communication. So Rogers and Farson cite three main components. The first one is to Listen for total meaning. When somebody is speaking, there are two meanings together: the content of what is being said and the feeling or attitude underlying the message. You need to be tuned in to not only the information that is being conveyed, but how it is conveyed and any non-verbal cues present. The second skill is to be able to respond to feelings. After listening, when a response is appropriate, you should respond to the feeling of what was said. The speaker will now feel understood and empathy will be established. The third skill is to note all cues. You should observe and take note of all the non-verbal cues. This can include tone of voice, facial, body expressions, and postures. The non-verbal cues can convey a much deeper meaning than merely what is being said. Active listening is also guided by three principles. The first one is empathy. Now, this is demonstrated by the listener reflecting the thoughts and feelings of the speaker. These thoughts and feelings are believed, supported, and respected, and are not dismissed or challenged. The second skill is genuineness. Active listening can't be faked. The third is unconditional positive regard. The listener has to have true feelings of respect towards the person who is speaking. The listener accepts and supports the speaker regardless of the content of their words. Active listening, then, is a key to a deeper understanding of somebody else. It can provide a safe and empathetic space for a speaker, fostering feelings of trust. Active listening can also be an important skill in the workplace. Kubota, Mishima, and Nagata, 2004, studied using an active listening training program on middle managers. The study showed that teaching these skills to these managers enabled them to better support employees with mental health issues. The managers were able to provide a safe environment for their employees to share their difficulties without judgment. The result was calmer behaviours and more success. This is important as a large portion of stress experienced by employees is from interpersonal relationships. Now, active listening skills can even help out in text conversations. Bauer and Figl, 2008, studied using active listening in online text communication. They found that active listening skills translated well into text communications and that using active listening techniques had positive outcomes in communication. Active listening can commence with asking an open-ended question, such as, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or, "What did you think about that?" Open-ended questions don't have simple yes or no answers and invite longer answers and more thoughtful answers. They can open the door to allow a person to begin sharing with you. Robertson, 2005, describes certain skills that you can work on to develop your active listening ability. One is your body language. Maintaining eye contact and using appropriate facial expressions conveys empathy and your attention. These actions shouldn't be forced or faked, as they are a reflection of your genuine attentiveness. It can also be useful to remove distractions from the environment. It may be of benefit to set up an environment that conveys a sense of peace and quiet. If you are in public, you may benefit from relocating to a quieter place. A second skill is following. This involves you allowing space for the speaker to speak, reducing or eliminating questions and giving space for silence. The speaker is encouraged to continue speaking by not interrupting or by asking the speaker to continue. The listener can use a simple gesture, such as a head nod, to acknowledge that they are still present and listening and that the speaker should continue. Now, this is quite different to the usual non-active listening scenario, when there often is a back and forth exchange, rapid questions, and people talking over one another. The third skill is reflecting. This is where you repeat what the speaker said, but you avoid stating it back verbatim. You aim to capture the essence and feelings of what was said and reflect that back to the speaker. This is done without expressing judgment, but with the goal of understanding. In some cases, you may wish to confirm that what you have reflected is accurate before continuing. Robertson lists three main barriers to active listening. Now, the first barrier is judgment. One of the hardest things to do when active listening is to avoid making judgments about what the person is saying. But if you start making judgments, you may criticize, label, or even praise the person such that you now lead the speaker rather than letting them proceed freely. Now, as the goal of active listening is to create a safe environment for the person to speak freely, making a judgment and acting on it may lead to the speaker becoming defensive, losing trust, or shutting down. The second barrier is suggesting solutions. Suggesting a solution is, without doubt, an act of well-meaning, but it often reflects a discomfort that you have with what the speaker is saying. It also creates a power imbalance in the dynamic. The speaker is left feeling unheard, and they are not empowered to create their own solutions. The third barrier is avoiding what the person is sharing. Now, this can show us either diverting the conversation, having a logical argument with the person, or simply providing reassurance to the speaker. Now, whilst we may seek to comfort the speaker with reassurance, it can often have the effect of shutting down or ending the conversation. One of the best ways of expressing empathy can simply just be to be there, be present, and listen. No glib reassurances or patronizing comments to make the situation seem better. Simply thanking the person for sharing can be a powerful response. So, in summary, active listening includes being fully present in the conversation, showing interest by practicing good eye contact, noticing and using nonverbal cues, asking open-ended questions to encourage further responses, paraphrasing and reflecting back what has been said, listening to understand rather than to respond, withholding judgment and advice. Active listening helps the speaker to feel heard and understood, and helps us to hear not only what the speaker is saying, but the complete message that is being communicated. It requires you to engage at a cognitive, emotional, and a behavioral level. Now, active listening is a skill that anyone can learn. It does require focus and concentration, and it involves us not trying to immediately problem solve. It requires us to be genuine. It helps with better communication with family, friends, and co-workers. Practicing active listening can help to deepen the connections in your relationships and to create stronger and lasting bonds. Taking a short course to learn to do it effectively can be a really good idea. And being good at active listening can certainly help to make you a better human. So I hope you have enjoyed this podcast. If you have, please help it grow by sharing on your socials. And please feel free to leave a comment or feedback if your platform allows it. And for any more information, please feel free to contact me at contact@thebetterhumansproject.com. Until next time, take care and work on becoming a better human.